Good afternoon, guys. It's Workin bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. We're going to be looking at a few coins, but we're starting off with Bitcoin to the US dollar. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon, by the way. Bitcoin to the US dollar, 4-hour chart, Bitfinex, guys, and Bitcoin is once again pounding away at this resistance at 6,540. That just seems to be the resistance point that it needs to break. Once again, price returns to that zone, as I told you guys about, between 62.80 and 65.40. I have noticed since the 8th of September, other than this long wick down here and a couple small little wicks here, the majority of the trading, the body of the candles have all respected an ascending support line right here, which seems to be getting squeezing price up right up against the 65.40 resistance. That looks like that's going to break at least by October, first couple days in October at the latest, I should say. Either we're going to break below this line or above this 65.40 resistance. I would imagine this would happen in the next few days, if not before. And if and when that happens, guys, the same thing holds true. As I said before, if we do break above 65.40, I do believe it'll be a very quick rise up to 67.50. I'm not seeing a whole lot of resistance where there was not a lot of structure created on the way down here, which tells me that more than likely it's going to be a fairly quick rise. As I said, if we can get a decisive break above 6540, again, by decisive, I mean if we can get a 4-hour candle that opens and closes, not just opens, not just closes, but opens and closes above 6540, I do think there's a good chance it's going to rise quickly up to test this 6750 mark. And if and when that does break, I think it'll be a quick rise up to 69.50, as I told you in the past. Now, we're nowhere near there yet. We're pounding on the top of this ceiling at 65.40. I would expect price more than likely probably to come back down, test this trend line. If that trend line does break, then this needs to hold down here at about 63.80, 6400, somewhere thereabouts. If that does break down, guys, again, we're looking at 62.80 as a possible target. And that 62.80, as I told you before, guys, if that 62.80 breaks down, if we break out of that range that we're trading between 62.80 and 65.40, typically it has been a very quick drop to 6100, and then a quick rise right back up. Now, if that 6100 breaks, as I've told you guys before many times, we're going to test 2018 lows. Now, no, we're nowhere near there yet, guys, and I want to start out looking at the bigger picture. And just to recap for those new viewers that haven't been watching my channel in the past, we showed you this again as the bigger picture. This is on the daily. We're watching Bitcoin just completely not die out, because to die out, you'd have to obviously would be dropping to zero. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about, but we are watching the momentum just shift to flatline. It looks like we're agreeing on a price which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000, and ever since that high in December, every single rally that we've had has been a little bit less and a little bit less. You can see the momentum dropping. So you can see these first two here, then we had this rally here, again, just slowly falling over. The next rally we had here, again, you can see the momentum just slowly falling off. Next rally was here. Oh, let me get that a little more accurate. Next rally was here. And what do we have right down the line, guys? Every single rally is just a little bit less momentum, a little bit less volume, until eventually this thing is just going to flatline. And you can see it's just falling over, and eventually it's going to flatline. And if and when that happens, we agree on a price. Typically, that happens right before there's a major move in the market. Coincidentally, we do have, not so coincidentally actually, we see this often in trading when this happens, we're getting to the apex of a larger wedge. We can see price getting squeezed tighter and tighter. Now, we have this very solid support that's been tested many times, right around $5,800 to $6,000. And if that does hold, clearly we're going to probably break out very strongly to the upside. If that does break, then of course we're going to break down very strongly. We're going to break down, obviously, very strongly. At that point, we're going to be looking at possibly the ceiling, or this floor at $5,450, somewhere thereabouts. If that does break down, we do have this longer trend line here that's been in place for quite some time that may catch price, but more than likely, I think if 54.50 breaks down, there's a good chance we're going to come down and test this order block all the way back here that was in place since September of last year, almost a year old, at about 4,600 to 4,400, and that'd be a must-buy in my opinion. I've told you guys this before. If it ever gets to this level, I think you're going to have analysts thinking that Bitcoin is dying. Everyone's going to be saying that Bitcoin's going down to 3,000 and below. Get out of the market. All the sellers are going to sell as much as they can, and at that point, guys, I do think you're going to get a flood of buyers that are getting very, very interested. You're going to get market makers at that point decide to turn things around. They're going to scoop up Bitcoin right at this level, and it's going to take off. off. Now again, does that mean that has to happen? No, of course that could break down, but in my opinion, I think this is the floor. I think this is where things would turn around if it gets to that level, and I'm not saying that it's going to, guys. I'm not at all saying it's going to. I'm just saying if that does end up breaking. One thing is for certain, we are going to get some resolution to this. We are going to get a larger move, be that up or down, in my opinion, by the end of October. So here in about another month, 5 weeks, somewhere thereabouts, I do believe we're going to get some serious resolution to this, and it's not going to be this continuation. What do they call those? I heard someone say this the other day, referring to this pattern as are they called Russian dolls, or anyway, those dolls that kind of fit all within each other. Those exact same shape. They're just each one's a little smaller than the other. That's what Bitcoin's been doing. The exact same shape. Each one's a little bit smaller than the other since December, and it can only get so small, guys. And we're starting to see it just fizzle out here, and usually again that precedes a very, very large move typically in the market. So let's go over here and let's look at our moving averages. What do we see? Excuse me. We're looking at our moving averages. This is on the 4-hour chart. We can see that price is finding resistance on the 21-day EMA on the 4-hour. On the daily chart, we can see that price is struggling to get above even the 8-day EMA, all very bearish indications. However, if we look at our moving averages, the 821, 55-day EMA are all converging on each other, and we are also the 50-day moving average is also converging, guys. We're starting to see the Bollinger Bands bottleneck, as I said, and oftentimes if that pattern continues and they continue to get squeezed like that, guys, we know that oftentimes a larger move follows that. Now, if we come over here and we look at the weekly chart, I've showed you guys this before. Looking at the weekly chart, guys, looking at the RSI, once again, we're seeing the same thing. Weekly RSI is getting squeezed. This RSI doesn't look like it because it's so small. Again, though, we're looking at the weekly. This represents or goes all the way back to February. Since February, this weekly RSI has been getting squeezed with a series of lower highs, higher lows, and as it approaches the apex, again, what do you expect? You expect a larger breakout. If I come over here and I look at the daily RSI as well, we can also see somewhat of a squeezed pattern here. We can see that price, let me get it right on there. We can see that price, even though it's not as perfect, we can see that we are certainly seeing price get kind of squeezed here slowly, series of lower highs, higher lows. We're also seeing it back here. If I pull it right off of here, we're again seeing a series of higher lows, lower highs, and as it gets squeezed tighter and tighter inside the apex of that wedge, you expect a larger move. And if I look at this, once again, that coincides nicely with the end of October that we would get that larger move that would reach the apex of that wedge. Doesn't mean that has to happen, just means, guys, it's very interesting that we are seeing that. So a lot of indication, guys, that the market is finding a fair market value for Bitcoin. It's getting squeezed, and not nearly the volatility that there once was, and again, that often precedes a larger move. If we come over here and we look at EOS, EOS had this little breakout. It's been outperforming Bitcoin, obviously. Let me actually go here to the 4-hour so you can see this a little bit better. Now, looking at EOS, it is above the point of control. We look at our volume profile. If you guys don't know what volume profile is, look at some of my past videos or look it up. But basically, this just shows you where the most trading has taken place. It's down here. And when price is above that point of control, that larger thing right here, this larger area right here, typically that's a bullish sign. We can see that it is above that point. We can see that it found a little bit of resistance when it dropped down here right at that point of control, which is a bullish sign, and came right back up. We can also see that this latest rise was fairly technical. I believe it hit perfectly off the 786. If I go swing low, swing high, what do we have? There we go. Yeah, actually, perfectly. Could not be more perfect. This wick came down. You can barely see it if you guys are have to look closely at the screen, but we have this little wick right here that touched perfectly off the 786 fib level. So it's a very technical, very nice bounce, and we know that EOS often retraces to the 786. So that wave 2 bounced nicely, which would put us on our wave 3 if we're looking at this from Elliott perspective, this being a 1, this being a 2, and we'd be coming up for the 3 if that is in fact the correct count, and if Bitcoin doesn't end up collapsing. So within this wave, what would be a wave 3, I'm looking at possible subwaves 1 and 2. So something like this, 1, 2, and we'd be coming back up for the 3. Now, does that have to happen? No, it doesn't have to happen. But if that is the count, and that's a big if, and I don't like using Elliott. As you guys know, I don't use Elliott very much at all at low volume markets, and this is still a very low volume market. But if I am using it, and I do target, often wave 3 is the longest and the strongest. If this is in fact the bottom, which this would be a very logical bottom, being that it bounced perfectly off the 786, we'd be targeting somewhere, often wave 3 targets about the 1618, which would be somewhere up here sitting at about $6.60 if this count is correct. Now, that doesn't mean that has to happen at all, guys. And again, this is I don't use Elliott in low volume very often, so let's just kind of wait and see how this happens, guys. But the fact that we're consolidating right here at about 557, I'd like to see a nice decisive break above this 557, and I'd like to see price at least start consolidating within this 571 to 583 zone, preferably above that, preferably eventually taking out this order structure right here. We've got to get north of this order structure right here for EOS to really start having some legs and really start taking off. And there is a lot of resistance between its current price point and breaking out in any significant way. We've got this nice little this very decent resistant level right here at about 613 to about 595, and above that between 6.45, 6.70, there's another decent resistance there as well. So we'll have to wait and see how this kind of plays out, guys. But for now, there's a lot of resistance above EOS. However, it has been performing fairly well, and let's see if that can continue. Looking at Ethereum, as we said before, guys, it broke above this descending resistance line here, didn't break decisively on the daily, came up, kind of consolidated, moved sideways, and then just had this very bearish drop, which traditionally that's exactly what's happened at this descending resistance line for quite some time. So price came down. Let me go to the 4 hours so you can kind of see this order block a little bit better. Price came down, dropped back into this order block right here, found support. I told you guys, so this is exactly where it would, if it did break down, this is exactly where it would find support. It did that, and it's been consolidating right on top of that, between the top of this support, which is between 212, and the bottom of this resistance, which sits at about 219. It's just been consolidating in there, very, bouncing back and forth, almost like a ping pong ball. And now we're coming back up against this descending resistance line again. Historically, we've had a major breakdown anytime Ethereum has reached this descending resistance line, possibly just kind of flirting with it here, trying to break above, but eventually just breaking down. So what we need to see is a nice break above this descending resistance line, in breaking above this 226 to 220 to 226 resistance, and we can get both of those. I think Ethereum will quickly come up and retest this prior high of this order structure back here at about 251, somewhere thereabouts. If it can break above 251, then at that point we're going to come into this order block up here, starting at about 275, somewhere thereabouts. I think between 251 and 275, it'll be a very quick rise if it can get to that point. Looking down, if we do get a major breakdown, guys, I do think it's going to come back down to this order block down here between 196 and 178. This would be a good buying opportunity, in my opinion, if it does come back down here, preferably the lower half of this zone. So anything below 185, in my opinion, would be a decent area to ladder in your buys. Maybe between 185, 175, with a tight stop at about 170 wouldn't be a bad idea if you're looking to get into a decent position into Ethereum. Now, it doesn't mean it's not a bad idea now to possibly get in, especially if you're bullish on this market. Personally, I'm neutral in this market. I think this thing could go either way, but it does look to me like it's going to have a decisive break in one way or another fairly soon. If you want a dollar cost average in, the last thing I would do is to put all your fiat into this. I would take small positions at this point and then add to those positions if and when price does end up dropping. Now, if it does end up taking off and you haven't entered, you also haven't lost anything, guys. So remember, protecting your money is the best thing that you can do. Yes, you're going to lose. You're going to lose out on some trades, and you're going to wish that you had taken them. But over time, you're going to win more than you lose, and that's what the game of trading is, guys. The game of trading is winning more than you can lose. If you end up losing all your money on one or two trades, then you don't have that opportunity. So yes, you have to be okay with sometimes missing out on opportunities. You're going to say to yourself, without hindsight is always 20/20 with trading. So the successful traders, guys, what they do is they protect their capital. And they play the game, they play the odds, I should say. So they respect their stop losses. They know they're going to lose sometimes, but the goal is to win more than you lose. Looking at Ripple, let me go back and find Ripple. There we go. Looking at Ripple, guys, Ripple is entering. Ripple looks to me like it's about to make a larger move here very, very, very soon. Clearly, it created this little this wedge pattern here that ended up breaking down as we reached the apex. It found this support zone. I told you guys last time, if and when price did end up breaking down, we had two zones. We had this support area at 52 cents, which price ended up breaking back above and then finding support right on top of again. That's a bullish indication that we are finding support on 52 cents. However, However, if it does break, we are approaching the apex of this wedge, which means that we may get a decisive break up or down. If it does end up breaking down, I'm expecting it to find support, the same place it found support last time, right here between 44 and 47 cents, somewhere thereabouts, right into this zone here. I don't expect, unless Bitcoin does break down decisively, I would expect this this zone to hold temporarily at least. If this zone does break down, if we break below 44 cents, guys, it'll be a free fall, in my opinion, more than likely a free fall all the way down to this order block down here, which starts at about 35 cents and goes down to about 32 cents. I don't believe it'll break below this, but this would be the bottom if this order structure breaks down. But again, initially, guys, if price does end up breaking down out of this wedge, I do think it's going to come into this order block here between 45, or excuse me, yeah, between about 44 and 47 cents, somewhere thereabouts. To the upside, if price does end up breaking up, I think initially it's going to find some resistance at the in this area right here, this order block right here of the prior wedge. So somewhere right in here, which would be the top of this wedge pattern here, but also the center of the prior order block. I do think it'll find some resistance there. I'd be very careful of a possible bull trap where price breaks up, hits that zone, and does a complete 180 and turns right back around. The opposite is also true. We might run into a bear trap where price breaks down, traps everybody into short positions, and then price just breaks right back up. So what you're going to want is to wait for price to either break below this prior low, which of this order block, which is sitting at about 49 cents, or break above this prior high, which sits at about 57 cents. That would be a safe way to play it. If you aren't going to play that, if you just wanted a dollar cost average into a position, I would have my shorts, or excuse me, my stop losses very, very, very tight. If price does break above this order block here, so if it does break above about 58 cents, I do think there's a very good chance we could come back into this block up here between about 68 and 71 cents. Now price before it just exploded through that. This was completely irrational. I have no idea what caused this. I know there was a ton of speculation, possible testing XRapid, possible banks entering some adoption of XRapid. Who knows what this is for, guys? There's a million reasons why. Bottom line, it did happen, and it was very it was almost impossible to foresee, but the only thing we knew for sure is that it was going to come back down, and certainly it did. If it does come back up, and if it's more of a technical move and not just based on complete FOMO, or if it's not based on very positive news, which could take Ripple just to the moon tomorrow, if we obviously if there was some announcement, some big announcement of a big bank adopting it, I do. But other than that, guys, if it does break above this wedge and breaks above this prior high of about 60, where was that prior high? Prior high right here of about 62 cents. I think it's going to come into this order block between 68 and 71 cents, which if we look back here, guys, this is where it created some order structure right back here. This should be a decent supply zone up here, and I would expect there to be some sell orders sitting right in this zone. So the most bullish thing that could happen if Ethereum does break up is to break up into this zone and just start consolidating and find support. If it finds support in this zone, I'm going to get very, very bullish on Ethereum if that does end up happening. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, I would appreciate an upvote, re-steam, or a like, depending on where you're viewing this. Till next time, guys, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Workin, signing out.